Hello, everyone. Welcome to our VantagePoint AI session today, right here on YouTube. Excited to dive into so many really exciting opportunities today in the markets, because even though, maybe the markets are, not exactly what you expected today, and that's okay. There are still plenty of opportunities out there, but the question then becomes how to find those types of opportunities. So we're going to be diving into kind of all things scanning related today, which in our VantagePoint world here means finding new opportunities. So we're going to dive on into our VantagePoint software. Just keep in mind, I'm not a licensed advisor, so I won't be giving you any trading advice, but I can certainly help you better understand how to utilize the technical analysis to your advantage so you can find better opportunities for entries, manage your positions, as well as find potential exit opportunities as well. So we're going to dive into all of that here in just a moment. But before we do, let me know if this is your first time using or seeing VantagePoint here. I'd love to know kind of who is already a VantagePoint family member and who might just be seeing this for the very first time. So let me know in the chat if you could. That also helps me to make sure that you guys are hearing me loud and clear and that we're ready to take a deep dive into the charts, which, let's face it, I know that's what you guys want to get to, is the analysis. So we're going to dive on in just a second, but go ahead and type that in the chat while I get our software all pulled up. Thanks, guys. All right, so you should be able to see my screen now. So you can see we've got quite a few different assets pulled up here. I'm gonna actually start by just doing a brief overview of the VantagePoint software so you guys can really understand whether you're a VantagePoint family member and have been for years or even decades, right? We've been around for a very, very long time using artificial intelligence. And that's actually what we're talking about today, is how to find some of these really impressive moves that we've seen in the markets recently, specifically in the tech, AI, quantum computing, and just, semiconductor sector. I mean, the list goes on. But what opportunities are the best opportunities? And how do you find them before they happen? And, well, even though we're looking for artificial intelligence opportunities, right? Opportunities in the AI area of the market. Let's utilize that technology to actually scan and find those types of opportunities as well. So let's put that technology to good work, working for you to help find those types of opportunities. So if you can see my screen here, just so you guys know what we're going to be looking for in the scanning portion of our session for today. So you'll hear me say IntelliScan. That is VantagePoint's proprietary scanning technology here. So we use what's called IntelliScan, and that is a very intelligent way of scanning for opportunities using the artificial intelligence and predictive indicators. But in order to scan, you have to know what to look for. So let's go over what we're going to be looking for in this scan today. So couple of different types of opportunities. But first one here, I've got RGTI, and I thought this is a great example just to showcase how powerful the software is to look for those bigger breakouts within the market. How do you know when something is just channeling sideways and maybe on a okay type of trend, right? Do you really want okay results, or are you looking for significant results in the markets? And I can pretty much so guess what you guys are going to say, right? You can type in it if you want. But I would love to know, too, while we review, who struggles with finding opportunities in the market? Let me know in the chat, because I know that that's one of the biggest challenges that we run into working with thousands of traders. So let's go over what types of opportunities we're going to be looking for. So if you take a look at our VantagePoint screen, you'll notice that we have some colors here, right? And the color that we're going to be looking for a bullish type of opportunity is green, right? Green for up, red for down. Just remember that concept and you'll be able to work VantagePoint, okay? Whether you're an experienced user or just starting out and maybe just seeing it for the first time. So if you take a look, you've got a green bullish crossover here where our predictive blue line crosses above the black line, and that trend turns green. That's what we're looking for that bullish confirmation. All right. So as we can see on 9/11, that happens. And then we get we get another point. I don't want to say full confirmation just yet. We'll get there. But we get another point of confirmation from our neural index, which is a predictor of price. So this is going to be a prediction that price is expected to rise over the next 2 days. It's green, so we would expect things to go up, right? So that right there, check 1 and checkpoint 2 to see, do we have confirmation of a potentially bullish movement in the market? All right, keep these in mind. 1, our crossover, 2, our neural index. Those are going to be 2 things that we're going to use in the IntelliScan to actually find these types of opportunities, okay? So we are next going to come down to our predictive differences. Now, our predictive differences are measures of strength in the current trend on not just a 1-day time frame, but really a 1-day predictive time frame, but also a 2-day predictive time frame, and then a 3-day predictive time frame. So we're actually looking out at that strength 1, 2, and 3 days ahead. And we can see that at this point, we also see these predictive differences starting to trend up and trending up very strongly as well. That trajectory of the line is at a nice steep slope. So we'd be looking for those pieces of confirmation to give us the confidence to have a confident bullish reading and expectation potential entry at this point. And so if you chose, again, hypothetically speaking, because, I'm not you, I don't know your specific trade strategy. However, VantagePoint can be customized to that. But you'll notice that this would be a point of confirmation. And from there, you could manage that trend on all the way up as long as that blue line stays above the black line. And we can see really nice, easy confirmation of that continuous trend, including today's expected forecast. So if we look at today's expected forecast now, we can see we do have a bullish trend, right? Again, looking at those points of confirmation, a bullish neural index, and then of course our predictive differences are also trending up as well, giving us nice confirmation of that potential continuation of the trend going on into today. Now I say today because guess what? That predictive trading candle, guys, right there is actually looking out 1 day ahead. So if you notice, this reading is for 10/7, right? Okay, well, today is 10/7. You're like, Nikki, how is that predictive? Well, VantagePoint family members had this information last night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're not used to looking at the VantagePoint software, it's going to be maybe difficult to wrap your head around, but just know that it is predictive and it is looking out. You have this information before the market open, right? In fact, the night before that next trade day. So you can prepare and plan for that trade day ahead, really finding good potential opportunities. So this is one example of how to identify trends, but we forecast for thousands of different assets. So would you want to go through, each and every individual chart each night looking for the crossover and the neural index and your predictive differences all trending up, as well as does it meet your other trade strategy requirements? And the answer is probably no. That would take a lot of time. And so that's where the IntelliScan comes into play. And so we are going to be scanning for some different types of opportunities today. And this particular type of opportunity would be a new trend. Why do I say a new trend? Well, because really we can see this trend is just starting. All right. So when we talk about a new trend, we would be looking for something that's really just starting and beginning to grow in strength. Has plenty of potential along down the road, and we can see that this particular asset had some great opportunity for growth. I'll just use my profit calc tool that we have here. This also helps to draw trend lines as well. But if we can see where we had that confirmation here, drawing on up to current day to where we're at. I'll just put it somewhere in the middle of that trade candle. You guys can see you can actually have some fairly massive gains by just following the predictive data and trading with confidence using those predictive analysis. Now, every trader is going to be a little bit different, right? You may also like to see those pullbacks. And I'm going to identify another area of the market or another type of opportunity, I should say, where we're not looking for the new trend, but but we're looking for the renewal of a trend, right? So this is where you could see these potential reversion to the mean type scenarios, or a pullback, some traders will call it. Or a retracement, right? A retracement to a potential buy point. And so you can see where our indications come all the way down, and we do have some shorter term weakness. Now, the question here you have to ask yourself is, from a position management standpoint, do we see this blue line crossing over the black line? And no, we don't. That's actually telling us that this trend is likely expected to continue, but we did experience some short-term weakness. What this can help you to navigate through is those major emotions that happen when a pullback occurs, right? Who finds themselves kind of on the edge of their seat, biting their nails when you see a little bit of a downturn in the market, especially when we're at all-time highs, right? It's like, oh my gosh, it's a bubble, it's gonna burst. Is it though? Use the predictive AI technology to help guide you through those scenarios. And beyond that, we can see you have nice full confirmation as well when we start to see this predictive differences, our predictive differences down here coming back up, our neural index turning green again, and of course our trend starting to slope back up, giving us nice confidence of the potential continuation. So how do I identify potential pullbacks before the next bounce? That's another type of scan we'll be creating today to identify those types of opportunities where we've established a continuous trend, but we've had a recent pullback and a new opportunity has arisen. All right, so we will definitely take a look at those, and then I'm sure we can come up with some other types of opportunities to look for in the market as well, and we'll take a deep dive into those a little later. But let's jump on into our first type of opportunity here so we can really see what we're looking for. So if you're looking for that newer trend, you can see that we've got, again, that crossover, 4 points of confirmation. I'm going to call them the 4 points of confirmation because we have that fourth point, which is our predictive trading range. And that predictive trading range is going to give us the expected range for the day. All right. So with a higher low. Why? Higher because it's shaded in green, okay? Green is going to equate to higher, and the predicted high was expected to be slightly lower than the previous day, so it is shaded in red, but overall our price action still expected to continue bullishly. So how do we scan for AI types of stocks? That's kind of the question here, because that's really what our training session is on today. So I'll show you how to not only look for AI stocks, but also to use the artificial intelligence to find areas of the market that are moving and really have the power of the trend behind them. And so what we're going to take a look at in our IntelliScan, and I'm just going to pin this to our homepage here so that way it doesn't just kind of appear and disappear on us. I'm just going to pull this on down. Now, if you're a VantagePoint family member, tell me in the chat, what types of opportunities do you look for? George, I hear ya. I will certainly pull that up for sure. We can do that. Okay, position management. Gotcha. So looks like some of you have trouble with finding opportunities, but also managing those positions after. So kind of by a show of hands or a me or some sort of acknowledgement in the chat. Do you think about position management before you enter into a position? I'd love to know. Just type that in the chat. I've found that it's, I won't tell you the ratio just yet, but let me know. Swing trading, 3 to 5 day opportunities. Thank you. All right. Well, we will definitely look at potential opportunities for that as well. So I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss any questions as it comes through. So yes, you should be looking at position management prior to even entering into an opportunity. So that really starts with opportunity selection on how you're going to manage that position. So we'll of course dive into that and loop that into the session as well. Type in your questions. If you have questions on a chart or how to evaluate what we're seeing here or want to dive deeper, just let me know in the chat, and that will just help to make the session even better for you guys. So we have seen our crossover, right? Now, here's the thing with scanning. I want everybody to understand that the indicators that we're seeing up here in the IntelliScan, you'll notice these are drop downs, these are filters where we can look for that directional expectation in the scan. All of these here are going to be found on the chart, all right? So we're not looking at anything new. We're looking at it in a very different light. So unless you've never seen VantagePoint before, and then this is all new, right? And that's okay, right? You can take away the information that we're using and evaluating here in VantagePoint into your own, whatever platform you use, but, minus the artificial intelligence and the intermarket analysis of it. But let's get into the scan here. So if we're looking at our medium-term crossover, which is a 2-day trend expectation, we can focus on that medium-term crossover here. So that's the same thing as looking for that medium-term crossover, that trend to be green, and the expectation of bullishness. Same indicator, different way of using it, right? So now you can really look for the visual opportunity up here in the scan. So if we take that medium-term crossover, I gotta just grab my mouse instead of my pen. There we go. All right, so let's just set this directional component to up. All right, that's it. It's really that simple. The software is gonna do the work for you. So you have your medium-term crossover set to up. All right, now we have other time frames. Keep in mind, I said VantagePoint is very customizable. So if you want a shorter time frame, here's your 1-day trend forecast looking at the short-term crossover. Our medium term is a 2-day trend forecast looking out 2 days. And then the long-term crossover is a 3-day trend forecast looking out 3 days. So depending upon your hold time or your trade strategy, you may like a little bit more sensitive indicator setup or a slightly more conservative indicator setup for your entries. Either is fine. Just make sure that you've got the confidence to take that position. So if you notice, we're going to use our kind of middle of the road, our medium term indicator here, looking out at a 2-day trend expectation. So we're going to forecast for this asset or whichever assets show up in our scan to be at a 2-day trend time frame and going up, of course. Now we can come to our neural index and we can set that direction to up as well. All right, and then we'll look at our predictive differences. We've done all of this on the chart already, guys. So those are those 3 lines down here at the bottom. These are the predictive differences. And yes, they come on a 1, a 2, and a 3-day time frame as well. So short, medium, and long term, that's a 1, 2, and 3-day trend expectation. Now that predictive trading range, that's that gray candle right over there on the side. We can also set that to give us higher highs and higher lows. So we'll set that direction to up as well. So all of our predictive indicators are expecting these markets to go up. So we just went from, over 1,800 assets. I told you thousands of assets here. And this is just the stocks alone. This doesn't even include the ETFs, the Forex pairs, the cryptocurrencies that we forecast for. So if you open this up, you can see we have plenty of additional assets that we forecast for in addition to just the individual US stocks as well. So just looking at the stocks, we can see we've narrowed this down to 221. Whew, that's still quite a few opportunities though. So how do we really get this narrowed down to something that you as a trader might want to look at? Well, you can see I've also got this volume and close price over here on the end. Now, I've put those down at the end because those are going to be kind of qualifying factors that are going to help you as a trader find maybe higher quality opportunities that kind of fit within your trade style. So who uses volume as an assessment for their entries? Tell me in the chat. And what volume threshold do you typically use? Let me know that as well. All right. For the sake of our scan, we'll say that we want volume. That's the daily trade volume, guys, by the way. You could also use dollar volume. We have that here in the software as well. So whether you like trade volume or dollar volume, that is also available to you. For the sake of this, since we already have trade volume in, we'll use that and set this as greater than just a million. Is typically a good baseline to start with. You may want to narrow that down to maybe 3 million or 5 million, depending upon your own individual trade strategy. But a million or more in trade volume typically is going to tell you that there's enough liquidity here that you can easily get into and out of a position. So basically, when you're ready to buy, is there someone there willing to sell? And when you're ready to sell and get out, is there somebody there to buy? Remember, it's transactional, right? So you have to have both parties. We need to have that volume. And Charlie, that is actually a really great point. Charlie says he uses volume percent. Which would be basically, is there an increase or decrease of the average volume during that previous day? So we can actually add in volume percent average, and that's going to give us, or that's going to allow us to filter based on whether we have higher than usual volume, above average volume, or lower than average volume. And so if we take that volume percent average, you could sort it on highest to lowest, what has the most activity, or you could filter as well. So if we filter, then what we can do is set this to be greater than, we would want a positive value above average. So maybe we just set that to above 0. And you can see we're really starting to narrow things down here. We went from 1800 to 240 something, and now we're down to 99. Just based off of volume and our initial 4 points of confirmation as well. So when we take a look at close price, this is another refining factor. If you, like to stay within a certain a certain price range, right? So if you're looking at close price, you as a trader might want something greater than a certain value. Maybe you're an options trader and you want assets above 25. Or maybe you like lower price per share stocks. And so maybe you're looking for something that's below, $10, right? You can easily filter for those as well, depending upon your trade strategy. So let's just actually set this to maybe greater than or equal to $10. So that way we can stay out of those penny stock areas. Or if you would prefer, then you can always adjust that and set a custom range as well by just clicking on that custom value also. All right. You can also filter and sort based off of those as well. So we can set close price to go from least to greatest, and it will sort those in order. Same with volume percent average, as Charlie was talking about. We can set those ones with the highest volume percent average up top and put that in descending order from there. So now we can also look at category and we can see, okay, well, technology, right? Technology has been a big mover in the market recently. So we can actually take a look and see what is moving, what is not moving here in the markets from a sector standpoint as well. So we've gone down to 77, but maybe you want to actually look for just those within the technology sector. So for that, we can just click that category button and select technology. That's going to give us anything within the technology sector. And you can see under the US stocks that we do have, several different sectors here for you to utilize and many assets within those individual sectors. And so here is technology right here. And now we're filtering based off of those assets as well. All right, so let me just come over to our chat section. Any questions on how to evaluate or how to filter or use the filter so far in IntelliScan? Vic, you could just look at the chart for that. So we don't need the scan to tell us what happened a year ago. You could simply just pull the chart back to a 1-year outlook and see exactly where that was a year ago, and did VantagePoint forecast. We could see, you know, we had another big run on Rigetti here right around that November timeframe. VantagePoint forecasted to go up, and that just took its run there, right? So you could go back and look at the individual asset from that standpoint also. I had that set at a 1 month, so we'll just jump back in. There we go. All right, so let's take a look at some of these, you know, individual assets as well. Now, you could further filter these down because 25 is still quite a few to have to look at. So maybe you want that short-term crossover set to up. All right. And if you're looking for that newer type of opportunity, then you could also set the additional indicators to kind of filter, you know, other assets out as well, like maybe that long-term crossover. Maybe you want that set to up. Or if you, again, want that reversal type opportunity, I'm going to just pull this up here so we can take a look. Everybody can see. We came out of the red and then into the green, right? So maybe you look for that triple cross, which is our most conservative view, guys. All right, we're going to use multiple indicators together in our scan today. So here you can see that the triple cross was down, and then we get this shift for a newer trend. And so you could look for that triple cross to be down, or you could set the direction as well, right? So if we look at on, you can see ON here. And with that, you can see that we were down and then coming back up, but at a resistance level. So who uses support and resistance? Because this is another key piece here. Let me know in the chat. All right. Now, this is a reversal type opportunity. All right. So it's also going to depend upon the market conditions as well. So if we look at current market conditions, we're also kind of in more of a continuous trend, right? If we look at the NASDAQ or the SPY, right, we can see, and let's look at the NASDAQ just for simplicity's sake here, because we are looking at, you can see obviously we have some additional indicators that that you can add as well, but even just keeping things very simple, we can see that we were at resistance on the NASDAQ, of course, with some all-time highs. So being cautious, but cautiously optimistic with continued bullish expectation coming into the next couple of days. So were we expecting maybe a little bit of a pullback today? Potentially, but overall, our trend has been a continuous bullish trend. And so if you were looking for a continued bullish trend, then we would look at all of our indicators going up, which means on the 1, the 2, the 3, and our most conservative, the triple cross, looking for all of those to be in the up direction. And so you can see here, like CSCO, this is going to give you even more confirmation from each of those indicators of that potential bullishness. Now, of course, you do want to be careful anytime that you're seeing resistance, but resistance can also be a great potential profit-taking opportunity. So here we had everything going up, and you could have potentially even taken just a short-term profit. Sorry guys, my mouse went a little crazy. But you can see even from where we get this crossover here, or this renewal of the trend up to potential resistance, you can hit that profit calc, and you've got a fairly decent move here in just a couple of days. Of course, Cisco being up today would help us to confirm that we are seeing potential bullishness. Now, again, we do have some resistance. So this is position management before you enter into the opportunity, right? Again, I'll repeat, position management should be top of mind before you even enter into a position. So if you're not thinking about position management, hopefully you have now put that on your list of things to do before entering into any type of opportunity. So if we take a look at some of these other opportunities that are in the technology area, we can see that we are in this continuous trend, right? Again, QBTS is one that came up. And again, we're down to 21 21 opportunities here, right? So you can see, are we expected to continue? And yes, right? We can see that bullish expectation. Let's look at our 4 points of confirmation and walk through this together. So identifying from 1800 or over 1800 to 21 certainly helps to narrow things down, and then you as the trader can come through and identify the best types of opportunity. Maybe you don't like to trade up against resistance. That's okay. If you get an opportunity up against resistance, you already know that maybe you should find another type of opportunity, right? Or go look at a different chart, because that might not be the one for you if it doesn't meet your trade setup. So as we can see here, we have our continuous trend, but how do we identify these areas of pullback followed by the continuation? So I want you to look at two things, all right? What is the overall trend, all right? And then two, what type of opportunity are you looking for? So if we identify the overall trend, the triple cross, this conservative, crossover type is really, really helpful and incredibly valuable at identifying just the overall integrity of a longer term trend. And so we can see when this trend turns green, again, we're on QBTS here. This is Dave Quantum Computing. You can see that our triple cross remains bullish this entire time. Well, we're in a current bullish trend, but notice what happens when we have this pullback. So we've identified the type of trend, right? That's step number one. Two, identify the type of opportunity. If you're looking for a bounce off of support or an area where something has retraced and now is renewing that strength. So if you're looking for, again, this type of opportunity. So I'm just trying to grab my pen here, where we're in an overall bullish trend, but we've had that pullback and then the expected continuation, right? Again, identify the overall trend, identify the type of opportunity. So now we can go look for that type of opportunity using our shorter term indication. All right. So if you look at that short term, you'll notice that comes down, but then we have this renewed strength that comes into the market. And this is where we can identify very quickly within a market these pullback type opportunities, reversion to the mean, as I mentioned earlier. Different name, same scenario, right? So if we take a look, we can actually come over to our short-term crossover. And getting a little bit more advanced here, guys, we're just going to use some numbers, right? Don't get scared by this, but we're going to use the number of days. We want that short-term crossover, that very sensitive indicator, to have just crossed recently, right? We want it to have happened within the last day or so, right? To identify those opportunities earlier, not after they've already taken off, but when are they just starting with confirmation from our 4 points of confirmation here. And so here, let's come over to the short term and set that number of days. You could set it to equals 1 or within the last 3 days. All right. So you can see we've got quite a few here that are still showing up. Cisco, again, showing up multiple times. Right here, we've got Microsoft. Let's take a look here at Microsoft so we can take a closer look at what's happening with Microsoft. So if we see, now keep in mind, we are looking at the overall market condition. So we know that things have kind of slightly pulled back, but we are still in an overall bullish trend. Again, identify the trend. We are still in a strong bullish uptrend here, as we can see by our triple cross. Now, if you notice this darker blue line here, for those of you who are not familiar with the triple cross, maybe again, this is your first time seeing VantagePoint. This is an 18-day predictive exponential moving average. So just really quickly, I'm going to show you what goes into this, right? So if you take a look, who knows what impacts Microsoft? Type it in the chat if you think you know what's a company that might impact Microsoft. Before I pull it up, I want to know in the chat. So type it in if you think you know what is one market that impacts Microsoft. I'm so curious. I've never asked this question before, so I'm just Curious to see who maybe gets at least one right. Let me know in the chat, all right? NASDAQ doesn't count, right? Just kidding. You can type it in. That's a freebie, right? But if you notice what we see in the market details, I'm just going to come into kind of the background area of this market. This is Microsoft. And I'm going to jump into the inner markets. All right. So AMD, NVIDIA, okay. Now I'm going to highlight the US stocks because most of you put in US stocks. Would you have ever guessed any of these? Who would have guessed exporting goods, right? So most of you couldn't even name one, let alone 31. And that's actually what's going into the forecast on these blue lines that you're seeing on the screen. So the black lines are generally just a simple moving average or an actual moving average. Those are going to be past predictors. Or lagging indicators. The predictive indicators are in blue. So when you see blue here in VantagePoint, it's typically going to be a very, very powerful indication. So we have 3 shades of blue here within the triple cross. You have your short term right here, which is the lighter blue, the medium term, which is that middle blue color, and then the darker blue, which is your T-cross long line, which is going to actually provide a very dynamic level of support or resistance, in this case, since we're in an uptrend, support. But you can see that no one guessed any of these assets in the chat, right? And so NVIDIA is actually not a driving factor of Microsoft, right? Now, NVIDIA and the Qs tend to follow a really, really strong pattern. There is some impact there if you were to look into the market details from that perspective. So not only are we looking at the top 31 markets that are driving Microsoft, but we're actually looking at the 31 markets that impact each of these markets that you're seeing on your screen, and then the 31 markets that impact those markets, and then the 31 markets that impact each of those markets, and so on and so on and so on. So you can just imagine the massive amount of data that's processed to come up with these forecasts, which is why artificial intelligence has become so incredibly powerful. But VantagePoint's been doing this for a long time. And this intermarket analysis is really what powers the AI here in VantagePoint. So as we can see with Microsoft, now that you know kind of the deep dive behind there, right? You can see Microsoft pulled back, and then we have this bump up here on the short-term crossover, which tells us that we're in a strong bullish trend, but we had a bit of a pullback, and now we're expected to continue. So, you know, when price sometimes gets overextended, it tends to pull back. And oftentimes that will happen at a level of resistance. So how do you know whether or not it's likely to break through that resistance level? And one way to do that is just to simply check your 4 points of confirmation, right? Do you have a bullish neural index? Do we have the predictive differences or measures of strength coming up as well? You can see at this point where we were hitting the resistance level, which is, of course, price. That's what I'm sorry, I should have said when price is hitting this resistance level, right? You can see we don't have the strength coming into this trend. And you may want to use some other momentum indicators. VantagePoint has some additional momentum indicators that are powered by the artificial intelligence as well. But even looking at your strength indications, you can see the likelihood of pushing through this resistance with no strength and some bearish price action, it is going to be pretty hard. There's not really a lot of confidence of that break there. But now that we're starting to see the bullish expectation renew within this current trend, you can have a lot of confidence there as well. So this is 5 types of opportunities. Cisco we looked at, that was up. Microsoft was up. We didn't look at Box yet, but we can take a look at some other ticker symbols as well. In fact, go ahead, type in the ticker symbols that you guys want to take a look at, and we'll do that as well. We've kind of run through 2 types of scans and how to identify opportunities within those markets. Keep in mind, volume percent average, volume, we're seeing above average volume in these assets as well. So we're not just scanning only on the predictive values. We're using that as the initial criteria, right? The initial checkpoints of whether or not this opportunity is even worth looking at. But then, does it meet your strategy components so you can really identify the opportunities that work best for your trade style? So let's take a look. Perfect. Okay. Mitchell, I gotcha. I think you had asked for this before too. So let's take a look. TSLA, you got it. And yes, I will pull up NVIDIA. I've already got it up, so we'll take a look at that too. PLTR, I know is on the list. Baba, you got it. All right, guys, you are giving me lots of tech stocks and AI stocks, and I love it. Here they come. I am pulling them up as fast as I possibly can. Okay, let's start here. All right, we've already looked at Microsoft. Let's take a look at Tesla to see what is happening here. So, well, here we are, right? Tesla, and again, keep in mind, I just have technology stocks in our IntelliScan. You can open that up to include the full list of stock sectors if you wanted to look at things like services, right? You could narrow this down to certain areas of the market that are really moving, including, areas like the SPY or the Qs. We do have those separate market breakdowns as well that you can utilize in the IntelliScan. So if you take a look at Tesla, again, this is where we've kind of seen this pullback happen and potential kind of retest of resistance as well. So let's walk through our different setups here so we can look at that triple cross to identify that overall trend, right? Again, find the trend and then identify the opportunity. So find out what kind of trend you're in. Are we in a bullish trend here or a bearish trend? You guys let me know in the chat based off of the forecast that you see. And again, we're not talking about, the details of today, just the overall big picture trend here on Tesla. All right. So, perfect. Okay. So if we come down and take a look, yes, we are in that currently bullish trend. So if we look then at our shorter term indications, are we starting to see some renewed bullish strength? And it is a strong possibility, right? But we also have this resistance sitting right here and a little bit of weakness in the overall market. So hopefully going into the markets today, you are also a little bit more cautious just because of the overall kind of shorter term weakness that we were experiencing or expected to see today. Was anybody caught off guard by the market movement today? If you were caught off guard, let me know. Maybe just put IDK in the chat for me if you didn't know that this was going to happen today, because that's an important key piece that I want to make sure everybody understands how to assess those market conditions so you know what types of opportunities might work best under those conditions. If the conditions change, your strategy has to adapt to that as well. All right. So some of you were not, some of you were. All right, good. If you were not caught off guard, fantastic. Then you knew exactly what you were looking at when it came to the forecast. If you were, you knew we were at all-time highs. We're experiencing a little bit of, pushback from resistance and, momentum was starting to slow as well. So being proactive can really help you there. But looking at Tesla, we can see we really started, what was the range for Tesla today? Let's just take a look. I'm just going to pull it up here over on the side, 432 to 452. All right. So we had a range of 452. So we were somewhere within this predictive trade candle, kind of mid-range here. You can see mid-range was 451.85. So guys, if you don't see where I'm looking at for that, it's right over here. Oof, I did not mean to make that so big, but in case you didn't see it, now you know exactly where that information is, right? So if we take a look at that predicted mid-range at 451.85, so we did open up above that mid-range, right? Somewhere towards the, like in the upper half of that predictive trade candle. And we just kind of ran all the way down, right? Today, close to that predicted low, which was 440.89, and we ended about 432. So lower than that predicted range, but still above our support. So right now we're kind of experiencing this channel of support and resistance, and we can see Tesla's just kind of been ping-ponging back and forth between that support and resistance level right there. When we see a channel like that, we of course always want to be a little bit more cautious, but we'll see, does this support level hold strong? And will we be able to continue bullishly? If we get some renewed strength in that market, then that would be an indication of that. Now, if we look at our 2-day forecast and our more conservative outlook, you can see navigating through the little bit of short-term weakness that we're experiencing here can really help you to better understand whether or not this is likely to continue. And so we do have that that bullish expectation, especially since we did not come back down and close below. But right now, in a little bit of consolidation. Here, you might even start to look at some volatility indicators to help you navigate through some of those scenarios as well, like Bollinger Bands or a Keltner channel. Let's look at the Keltner channel on this. Who uses the Keltner channel for their trading? Again, whether in VantagePoint or not, the Keltner channel can certainly help you see what that potential range or fluctuation or key levels where those could lie as well. So as we can see, we hit that upper Keltner channel previously. And so to pull back off of that is not that unexpected. Will we be able to stay above that mid-range? So if we bounce off of that upper Keltner, so I'm just trying to find my pen, guys. There we go. All right. So if we, again, still close below, the likelihood of a retracement back down to that center Keltner channel line would be high. Now that is a 20-day predictive exponential moving average, also known as a strong level of support as well. So using that 20-day EMA or predictive EMA in VantagePoint, you can see that if we're able to stay above, then the likelihood of a continuation could be higher. So this is, again, stacking those probabilities in your favor, making sure that you understand not only the day-to-day, but also the overall scope of the trend potential as well. Yeah, the market was showing weakness since pre-market into open and kind of throughout the day, right? And that was really the overall expectation. So thank you for that note. If you actually take a look at our VantagePoint forecast, you can see that, I'm just going to jump all the way on over. If we look at the SPY or even the Qs here, right, we did have some potential weakness. I'm just going to come over to the Qs and I will use just the predictive differences in and of themselves. See how they're pretty much so sideways at all-time highs. To break through and break higher highs, we need to see bullishness coming in all three of those. And we just don't really have that up against the all-time highs. If you want to add additional points of confirmation here, then you could use things even like your MACD or your RSI. Take a look at your stochastics here. You can see that your stochastics, which is a very sensitive momentum indicator. Who, by show of hands, who uses stochastics? Let me know in the chat. So I know whether or not we should dive deeper into that or put this on the rest of our charts. Stochastics was actually giving you a heads up here that says momentum is slowing, right? We're kind of pumping the brakes up here against some major resistance because we are at all-time highs. And so at highs, we know those are levels of extreme resistance. So when we have the downward pressure from resistance happening, the only way to break through that would be to have good momentum and good volume backing that trend and good strength behind it. Well, we don't have a whole lot of strength coming in. And also you can see on stochastics, this is a great point here where we're actually losing momentum. We're starting to shift bearishly in momentum. Now, again, this is a shorter term indication. Keep in mind what I'm saying here, that we're seeing some potential short-term weakness at this point. Overall, though, our trend is bullish. Are we saying that this is a reversal? No, not at this point, right? But could we experience some weakness? Should you be aware of that coming up? Yeah, and that would have probably saved a lot of people a lot of heartache today and a lot of worry and you know, nail biting, if you will, by just better understanding what type of market we're in and the current situation, so you can navigate through that. Charlie, yep. MACD, stochastics, RSI, Bollinger, absolutely, all of those. And the artificial intelligence goes into all of those forecasts on any of those indicators that you just named as well. So thank you. Does it take any news into the information with its prediction? So no, not specifically news related information. And what we find most of the time, if you'll notice, when there's news related events, oftentimes it's just a momentary blip in the trend. It's not always a massive kind of burden for that trend to have to overcome. Oftentimes it's just a little bit of a pullback that news will cause. I mean, even tariff announcements have caused some momentary kind of movements in the markets, or Fed announcements, right? But the overall trend still remains. And that's why you want to really focus on the overall forecast as well, so you can really navigate through using those predictive indicators. Are the predictive indicators telling you this is just a momentary blip, or are they signaling something significant happening behind the scenes? Because if a news announcement happens, right, and all of a sudden things start reversing, the data that is picked up by VantagePoint is going to reflect that in the forecast. So if it's significant enough to shift those markets that are impacting the market that you're looking at, then it'll be reflected in the forecast. VantagePoint's analyzing a lot of data. So I had RGTI was another request that came in, so I'll pull that up as well. If we missed any others, let me know. But we'll continue on, at least for the next little bit. We've got about 8 minutes left, so we've got some time to evaluate some charts. So RGTI, we've looked at Palantir. Let's jump into Palantir, right? PLTR is a big one that you can, again, potentially identify those stronger opportunities where we do have a bullish trend. Our triple cross is up. Price action is actually still above that T cross long level. All right, but let's take a look at your shorter term crossover. Not crossed over just yet, but again, in that overall trend. Now, notice where support is, all right? But look at also too your longer term indications, and you can see we are still in this bullish trend. So again, looking at the overall trend, right? The overall trend, and are we just experiencing maybe a little bit of a pullback here with a potential bounce off of support? Now, you can see that our predictive trade candle was expecting a higher evaluation off of that support level. All right. So you can see price action only came down and closed 1 day below that support level. Well, that 1 day close is not enough to break that support level. And so the likelihood of this support level acting as a trampoline for price is much higher, because in order to break through or bust through that support level, right, we would actually need to see 2 consecutive closes below that support level to signify the break of that level. We didn't have that. So our support level is holding strong. Our trend is still continuous. So if you were looking at PLTR in that position, you can kind of manage through there with a little bit less emotion and anxiety, or use that as a potential retracement point and that bounce off of support, as we were talking about earlier. So coming on in to, let's take a look. I don't think we've taken a look at NVIDIA yet. You look at as many charts as I do during the day, and sometimes you forget which ones you've reviewed already. So let's take a look at NVIDIA here. Gosh, look at this trend, right? So this is again where we see that reversal type scenario, and VantagePoint navigating through that very, very well. We can see that pullback and then the reversal. This was not a pullback. This was a reversal. The reversal and then the continuation, and just running this all the way up through again with that triple cross or that T cross long level just acting as support all the way up until we start to see some larger bearish momentum and shifts here. And you can see that with your predictive indicators as well, all starting to shift to the downside. So a larger correction happening there, but then again, bouncing back up and just maintaining now with our triple cross being green. Again, you can just look for the colors and keep it very simple. Looking for the colors to remain green and using these potential key levels like your T cross long as points for that reversion and then continuation, just like we were looking at in the scan where our triple cross or our T cross long had remained up, but our short-term crossover had just renewed its strength. So understanding what to look for on the chart and then just applying that into the IntelliScan is really the best way to scan, because you can identify the types of opportunities that would make sense for you and then just apply that to the filters in the scan. So you just build the scan backwards, and that's really where you can get into kind of like the mastery of scanning, is once you understand these indicators on your chart are the same ones up in the IntelliScan, and just make the software work for you and not the other way around. So let's take a look at a couple of other opportunities here that we had some questions on, and Baba was one of them. So we have the potential opportunity way back here where we had nice movement on our predictive differences. Now my eyes are kind of trained just to see this kind of immediately, but maybe you need a little bit of help. So I'm gonna just kind of jump this out. One, you can see we do have earnings. This is an earnings flag. It's kind of a little warning sign that says, hey, earnings is coming up. You might want to be a little cautious unless you trade earnings. And even then you would want to make sure you're incorporating that into your strategy and your assessment, right? So if we then take a look to see, okay, well, we have a bullish crossover and nice predictive difference movement here along with our neural index, and then of course the crossover as well, the continuous trend on up from there. So moving right on through and continuing in that upward movement. Now, again, up against resistance. So maybe anticipating a little higher risk today, actually within the last couple of days, simply because we are up against resistance. And anytime we're up against resistance, understand it's higher risk, right? But assess for that risk. Or is it worth it to you, right? Maybe you're in a position, and this is where position management comes into play. If you're in a higher risk position, you have to do something to mitigate that risk. Maybe you're taking a portion of the profits off. Maybe you do that as we hit resistance and bounce off, right? So if you decided to take some profit here, right? If it dips back down and then comes back up, well, that's okay. You can always add back into your position on the dip. And that is why understanding how to scan for those scenarios is very, very important as well. So if we take a look at our next opportunity here that was requested, we have AMD, and AMD. Okay, so who had AMD? Who put AMD in here? And what questions did you have? And yes, you can scan for bearish opportunities as well. I just saw that someone said that they did puts on an opportunity, and you can certainly look for those as well. Now with AMD, you would also want to, oh, hang on guys, gotta love it when when technology does its thing, right? But AMD here, I think we're back. So AMD, we can see we had a big gap up. So that is something that you would certainly kind of want to be a little bit cautious on, right? When you have a big gap up like that, oftentimes we'll come back to kind of refill some of that gap. So, that's kind of where we're at currently. I think we're right around 211. So you can see that the predictive trade candle was expecting a bit of a pullback to help kind of refill that gap on AMD. And so this is just a signal that tells you should be very cautious, because sometimes that happens. So you want to make sure that you're watching your entry point, but also too, use those forecasts VantagePoint had forecasted, don't wait till after the gap. Look for the opportunities ahead of time, right? So you can take advantage of that movement here. And in fact, we had full confirmation back here, really, when we had our predictive differences coming up. And I'll just, I will pull this up so you guys can see. We had all three of those predictive differences coming up here with the crossover and our predictive neural index. So nice confirmation there. As far as a potential entry, even prior to that big gap up, and maybe then after that gap you take profits, right? You can see we hit that previous resistance and then just had that pullback. Or if things continue to look bullish with the forecast and updates tonight, then of course you could potentially also look for the re-entry point or the reversion point to continue. But again, you'd want to have good confirmation from your indicators when they update tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can see, of course, here our forecast, I took out the technology sector just in and of itself, so we could look for areas of opportunity that have had a pullback, looking for, or even the reversal where we've actually got full confirmation here coming from, and this is again outside of technology because we removed that. It doesn't have to be within a certain sector, right? So we know that some of the other sectors are really moving right now. And with that, you can identify other areas of the market that are also moving. Just use the artificial intelligence, not only to search for AI type opportunities, but use the artificial intelligence to look for any opportunity in the market. Here you can see Humana, where we had that crossover again, along with the 4 points of confirmation. We had our predictive neural index coming on up, potential entry, again, breakthrough of resistance, 2 closes above the resistance, and the continued expectation here. So again, nice confidence, nice, simple. Keep your entry simple. Again, look for those potential profit targets using support and resistance. And you can really find and customize the type of opportunities that you are looking for as a trader as well. So again, regardless of what area you're looking at in the market, but if you're looking for big breakouts or nice slower moving reversals, you can use the IntelliScan to do that. Don't sit and look through each chart or wait for a newsletter that tells you after the fact. Use the artificial intelligence, use the charts to help you identify the types of opportunities you're looking for, and then have the scan go out and do the work so you can really put your time and effort into what means the most to you. So today was, a great scanning opportunity. So glad that you guys were all able to join us, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the next sessions. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.